Missionary work in Japan. Hold on, let me get a sip of water. Ooh. According to historians, Japan has provided 70% of the Unification Church's wealth. Damn! The Unification Church gets funding based on what is called spiritual sales in Japan. Stephen Hassan, an exit counselor and former Unification Church member, describes spiritual sales as parishioners scanning obituaries, knocking on people's doors, and saying your dead loved one is communicating with us. So please go to the bank and send money to Unification Church so your loved one can ascend to heaven in the spirit world. That is some shiesty shit. According to Shoichi Fujita of the Religious Information Research Center and the Zenkoku Ginryondo Higaisha Fubo Nokai, I definitely said that 100% correctly, literally National Association of Parents of Victims of Moonism, an organization formed by the parents of Unification Church members. The Unification Church's doctrines make Japanese people the target of the Unification Church's fundraising efforts by disseminating a doctrine which depicts Korea as the Adam nation and Japan as the Eve nation that committed sins and therefore obliged to pay money and people to Korea. This makes me think, though, when they were doing these mass weddings, quote unquote, was it like mostly like males from Korea and females from Japan? I'm just kind of throwing that out there. In Japan, the missionary work of the Unification Church has been recognized as a serious social problem since the 1980s. Some of the issues are that the Unification Church uses people's personal worries and anxieties to force them to buy unreasonably expensive items such as pots and seals, conceals its name to entice people to become followers, and forces followers to marry someone it has chosen. So now we're getting to the sketchy shit. The Unification Church has been accused by critics of church leaders are exploiting the labor and capital of their followers, including billions of dollars transferred from Japan to the United States to build a business empire. Tak Ji-il, a professor at Busan Presbyterian University, said the Unification Church is fighting over religious principles on the surface, but money in reality. Yoshikazu Soejima, a senior official of the Unification Church, revealed the inside story of the Unification Church in the monthly magazine Bungei Shunju, released on June 10th, 1984. According to Soejima, over 10 years in the 1970s, about 200 billion yen in donations from Japanese believers were sent to South Korea. In addition, about $800 million were transferred from Japan to the United States in the 9 years up to 1984. Soejima was stabbed several times in front of his house on June 2nd, just before the magazine was released, and he almost died, but the police could not identify the criminal. Wow. It's getting deep now. In 1987, about 300 lawyers in Japan set up an association called the National Network of Lawyers Against Spiritual Sales to help people who were forced to make expensive donations or forced to buy expensive things like pots and seals. According to statistics compiled by the association's lawyers between 1987 and 2021, the association and local government consumer centers received 34,537 complaints alleging that the Unification Church had forced them to make unreasonably large donations or to spend large amounts of money amounting to about 123.7 billion yen. I don't even have that much money in all my Yakuza games combined. That's a lot of damn money. I know yen is less than, like, it's not like 100 billion yen ain't like a US dollars, but that's a lot of money, goddamn. Whew. I mean, everything up to this point was like on the level. It was cool. Like, oh man, it's just okay. We got wedding ceremonies, and we interpret the Bible differently and whatnot. But shit, it won't. There was no big deal. This is serious, right? Like this is where it gets very sketchy. And here you're starting to you're starting to now see the link between the Unification Church, Japan, Shinzo Abe, and his assassinator, right? You're starting to see like, oh, okay, right? It's not just this one guy, right? You're starting to see like it's not just the isolated incidents as far as like this one guy having a grudge against this church. So now we move on to the assassination of Shinzo Abe. In 2019, National Network of Lawyers Against Spiritual Sales released a document protesting the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sending congratulatory messages to events organized by the Unification Church and its affiliated organizations. The association feared that Abe's message would give authority to the Unification Church and encourage its antisocial activities. In 2022, Abe was assassinated by Tetsuya Yamagami. Yamagami said that he resented the Unification Church because his mother was forced to make a large donation to the church and went bankrupt. She joined the Unification Church in 1998 and sold the land she inherited from her father along with the house where she lived with her 3 children. In June 1999, she donated about 100 million yen to the Unification Church and went bankrupt in 2002, significantly affecting their family, according to Yamagami. Yamagami stated that his original plan was to assassinate Hak Jung-han, the widow of Sung Myung Moon, and the current leader of the Unification Church. However, he gave up killing her because he could not get close to her. He believes Abe and his grandfather, Nobusuke Kishi, spread the Unification Church in Japan and decided to kill Abe after discovering online that Abe has sent video messages to Unification Church related organizations. His mom went crazy with the donations. I mean, she just, and to me, that sounds like one of those things where it's like you get so into like this spiritual fervor that it's like take all my money, just fuck every material thing, just give it all up. Like I'm giving up the houses and the cars and the money. All I care about is God now, and I'm just whoa, and right, and your children are starving, right? You've lost all like your stability and all that, and that's kind of what that sounds like. Or maybe she was manipulated. Like maybe she was more of a victim and was manipulated out of it. Or she was just so caught up in just this religious fever, man, and couldn't control herself. The National Public Safety Commission Chair Satoshi Ninoyu instructed police authorities to set up a panel to investigate the security lapses which may have been involved in the incident. The commission chair is among several elected officials who promoted a Unification Church event in 2021. Tomohiro Tanaka, a spokesperson for the Unification Church, admitted in a press conference that in the past, the Unification Church had problems with its followers due to illegal solicitations and large donations. He claimed that there has been no trouble between the Unification Church and its followers since 2009, when the church began to emphasize legal compliance. Chong Hwan Kwok, the honorary president of the Global Peace Foundation, who had long held a position second to Sung Myung Moon in the UC and left the Unification Church in 2009 after internal strife, apologized on behalf of the Unification Church. He said that the church was responsible for the assassination of Abe. According to Kwok, a wave of bankruptcies, divorces, and suicides among Japanese believers had prompted him to attempt to normalize Japan's status as an economic force in 2001, but his attempt was thwarted by strong opposition from other church leaders. The Unification Church later denied Kwok's claim, saying that it was Kwok who called for the transfer of Japanese money to the church headquarters, which would probably be within his power to do given his ranking in the church. On the other hand, the National Network of Lawyers Against Spiritual Sales reported that victims were cheated out of about 300 million yen in 2021. Hiroshi Yamaguchi, a lawyer for the National Network of Lawyers Against Spiritual Sales, refuted the claim made by the Unification Church at the press conference, saying The Unification Church should consider the pain and tragedy of the families of his followers. The Unification Church has bankrupted many of its followers. Another lawyer, Yasuo Kawai, accused Japanese politicians and administrators of taking no action against the Unification Church, which disintegrates families for more than 30 years. Masaki Kito, a lawyer who is familiar with the actual damage caused by the UC in Japan, said donations amount to 55 to 60 billion yen, and the worst case was to have believers prostituting themselves to raise money. Shit. Kito called for Japan's National Diet Parliament to conduct an investigation of the case bipartisanly. Whoa. So it seems like Japan is the country that's hit the heaviest by the I guess what you could say the wrongdoings of this church. It seems like they've been the most affected as far as like people being like scammed out of money or pressured into donating large sums of money. But we're going to get more into that later in the next article. Japan's main opposition party, the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan, and two other opposition parties, the Democratic Party for the People and the Japanese Communist Party, have said that they plan to launch their own investigations into the UC's political influence and connections in Japanese politics. On August 31st, 2022, the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, of which Shinzo Abe was a member, announced that it would no longer have any ties with the Unification Church and related organizations. The Liberal Democratic Party has announced that it will expel its members if they do not break ties with the Unification Church. Whoa. In 2022, Abe was assassinated. The accused gunman stated that his motives were not political in nature and that the church ruined his life. It was later revealed that the shooter's mother had donated 100 million yen, roughly 720,000 American dollars, to the church, leading to her family's bankruptcy in 2002. Financially troubled, the shooter was unable to enter university despite graduating from a prestigious high school, and his brother and father would later commit suicide. On the 11th of July 2022, the Unification Church issued a press release stating donation amounts are determined by individual members. The UC has historically had close ties to the right-wing Liberal Democratic Party, which Abe's grandfather Nobusuke Kishi formed. Saddest anime deaths. Dude, when you see it from this angle, and again, I'm not trying to justify it, but it starts to make more sense as far as like why he was so emotionally charged and just burning on the inside to get some form of revenge. And going after Shinzo Abe might seem strange, but then you look at the fact that he wanted to go out. He wanted the top dog. He wanted the widow of the man that created this religion, this church, the right. But he couldn't get close to us. But he had to do something. This kind of like in the hood when you can't get the guy that you want, right? The rival gang member but you can't get to him, and you see his cousin or his brother, or where his mama live at, or his grandma stay at, and you shoot up his mama house. It's kind of like that, where it's like I can't get to him, but I want him so bad because I know he killed my brother. I know he killed my friend. I gotta get to him, but I can't find this nigga. And so you shoot up his mama house. You kill his brother. Right? That's kind of how it goes. And I could imagine like that's roughly kind of how he was feeling. Was like, man, like this shit, like it ruined us, and it led to the deaths of his brother and his father, and prevented him from being able to have a easy road to going to university and having what could have possibly been a financially stable, successful life. But man, like this shit goes way deeper than what I thought, though, man. This again, it's not an isolated incident. As far as like people in Japan feeling like they were scammed out of money, or family members were pressured into, these big donations or whatever. So before we move on, let's just talk about the suspect a little bit more, who killed Shinzo Abe. Tetsuya Yamagami, a 41-year-old man living in Nara City, was arrested by Nara Prefectural Police at the scene on suspicion of attempted murder. I think it was him. This was later upgraded to murder after Abe was pronounced dead. Yamagami was transferred to the Nara Nishi police station upon arrest. I'm sorry, whenever I hear Nishi, I think of Joe's friend from Ashitanojo, Nishi. He was described as being calm and having made no attempts to flee. Yamagami had no prior criminal history. As of August 10th, 2022, formal charges have not been brought against Yamagami, and he is currently held at the Osaka detention house for a mental evaluation until November to determine if he is mentally competent to be indicted. Personal life. Born in Mei Prefecture, Yamagami was born to affluent parents who ran a local construction business. Described as quiet and reserved in high school, he wrote in his graduation yearbook that he didn't have a clue what he wanted to do in the future. Yamagami dropped out of university due to his family's financial problems. His father had died as a result of suicide when he was 4 years old. After the death of his maternal grandfather, his mother took over the construction business. Yamagami joined the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force in August 2002. He was posted to Kure Naval Base and assigned to destroyer JS Matsuyuki. He was discharged from the JMSDF in August 2005 as a quartermaster with the rank of leading seaman. In October 2020, Yamagami started working as a forklift operator in Kyoto Prefecture for a manufacturer that operated in the Kansai region. There he was described as quiet. He quit in May 2022 after claiming he was feeling unwell. Yamagami was unemployed at the time of his arrest. So that was the article and a brief summary of the suspect. Oh, that was a mouthful. That was a lot. Oh man, this whole Unification Church thing it was it was interesting getting to know it more, right? Because I knew when I first read into the assassination of Shinzo, and the reason given by the culprit, like I was immediately like, okay, there's something here. there's something here, but it's much more interesting than I thought, because when you're talking about any big organization, and we're not just talking about religious organizations, any organization, right? Because obviously there's an issue here as far as the members of the church putting pressure on people to donate, selling these expensive items, and like some of these stories as far as them reading obituaries and saying, going to the family and saying, we're in communication with your loved ones. Like, come on, that's just some straight up evil shit to do. That's straight up evil, right? And it's like, when I look at it, my question is like, how deep does this, these foul practices actually run? Is this something that's just people at the lower level or maybe mid-level taking advantage of their position of power to get more money out of people? If so, are they taking these donations and using them for personal gain or personal fun and luxury? Or are these practices being passed down from the highest levels of this church? Is this coming from the top and then falling all the way down to the bottom as far as being a common practice done with intention, as far as the scams and the schemes and the pressure and specifically the targeting of Japanese people. That's what my primary question is, because I don't want to just demonize the whole church because it has bad members, right? You can't put 100 people in the same room without somebody being an asshole, right? Let alone a church or organization with thousands of members across the world. So I don't think it's fair to just to look at it and say, okay, well, the whole church is corrupt because some people within it, because you even see stuff like this within like any religion, right? Like you see like the pedophile priest, and you hear about these big mega churches and how they like. I know, for example, like one story, like one tale as old as time is like the preacher who uses the donations and whatnot to have like fancy cars and the biggest house on the block. Stuff like that. This is nothing new, but I don't think that, pointing out specific individuals who might have, take advantage of, like I said, their position of power means that the entire church is corrupt. But if these, like, where are these practices coming from? Like, who is there somebody higher up telling them to do these things? Is this something that's just are these individual people just deciding to be assholes, deciding to do these bad things? Are they doing them not really understanding what they're doing, right? Because that could be a possibility too, where they're hurting people and ruining people's lives, not with the intent of doing so, but just that they were taught to operate in a certain way, as far as like how they try to collect donations, how they try to get people to convert to their beliefs, right? Maybe that it could be an unintentional thing. Or are there people at the higher level, right? Like the highest ranking members developing these strategies and schemes to get the most amount of money, even if it comes at the cost of the integrity of the members beneath them, even if it comes at the cost of the livelihood or even the lives of the people who are victims to these unfair practices. That's what really my question is. But now here's something interesting. I found this article. This was on the Japan Times. And so this says the LDP to update list of members linked to Unification Church. Very short, but here we go. So the ruling Liberal Democratic Party will release an updated list of members who have had connections with the controversial Unification Church. Its Secretary General Toshimitsu Motegi said on Tuesday, links between the church and LDP have been in focus after Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was shot during an election rally. The suspected killer blamed Abe for supporting the church, which he said had bankrupted his mother. The church has declined to comment on her donations and has also said it no longer accepts donations that cause financial hardship. The LDP this month said that 179 out of 379 members it surveyed were found to have interacted with the church. In a cabinet reshuffle last month, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida removed 7 ministers who had disclosed connections to the church in an attempt to reverse a slide in his approval rating. So this is major. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida removed 7 ministers, all because they had a connection to the church, and their connection to the church and hence their connection to him affected his approval ratings. At least he believes so. However, on Tuesday, Economy Minister Daishiro Yamagiwa admitted in a news conference he had attended a Unification Church sponsored event in 2018 that he had not previously reported to the party. Asked whether he would consider stepping down as minister, Yamagiwa said he would take responsibility by staying on as minister and carrying out the administration's economic stimulus measures. This is the work I need to fulfill, he added. Amid increasing public scrutiny into the party's relationship with the church, the cabinet's approval rating has plunged to around 30% in recent polls, compared with a peak of around 60% earlier this year. Come on now, that's major. The low ratings are close to what political analysts see as a danger level beyond which Japanese prime ministers may find it difficult to carry out their agenda. So this was a completely unrelated article to the Wikipedia article. Like this is what's going on now in Japan as far as like this whole Unification Church thing. And so to me, it looks like even being affiliated with it or associated with it is enough to affect your approval ratings and people's perception of you as far as like being in that position as prime minister or other prominent positions in the Japanese government. But man, this rabbit hole, this was one fascinating rabbit hole to go down, man.